Hello, welcome to Frequencies, tuning into frequencies of human behavior, perspective, and empathy. Today, we're going to talk about something massive, something current, and honestly, something I was pretty reluctant to touch because of the weight of it. But with the impact it has on our society as a whole, I don't think ignoring it is an option anymore. And with the implications it has for all of us, there's no better time than right now. Today we're going to talk about the Epstein stuff. It's going to get raw. I'm probably going to get a little heated at times. That shouldn't surprise anyone because the acts we're talking about are evil. Not edgy, not controversial, not questionable judgment. Evil. What's strange is that there's still people out there who don't really know the extent of the accusations. They don't understand the scale of it. They don't realize how many powerful, evil monsters are specifically named in these documents, or how grotesque some of the stories are in the victim's testimony, or how disturbing some of the cryptic coded emails and messages sound when you step back and look at the pattern. There's a lot to go through. And I don't think most people have any idea just how deep, how wide, and how ugly it really is. We're not going to go through all of the files, file by file. We can't do that. We don't have the time. And honestly, I don't have the stomach for it. You can look at the documents yourself. They're online. You can go look at them. And if you don't want to do that, there's a good amount of excellent content creators who have dedicated their entire platform to digging through them with a fine-tooth comb and breaking it down in shorter clips and with summaries. It's all out there. It's not hidden. Just got to look for it. For me, it's not hard to see. No matter how hard I try to push it out of my algorithm, it keeps finding its way back. And in a way, I think that's how it should be. Because the worst possible outcome with something like this is that it gets normalized and then forgotten. And I firmly believe that's the plan. Just to let it fade into the background noise until nobody cares anymore. We cannot let that happen. Now, for some reason, one of the main reasons people seem divided on this isn't the evidence. It's not the victims or the scale of the operation. It's politics. Their team, their colors, their logo. Today I'm begging you, absolutely begging you, to put that down for a minute and look at this as a human being. We have to be able to see eye to eye on this. If you don't think wrongdoing is happening here, you're part of the problem. And that's not an insult. That's a statement. Because it means either you're not looking or you're choosing not to see. The division in this country, honestly, in the whole world and across human history, honestly, has been a tool. Whether it's religion or race, class, or politics, division has been strategically useful for whoever sits at the very top. If we're fighting each other, we're not looking at them. And as long as we stay split, they get to stay exactly where they are. But for the sake of mankind, for the sake of basic sanity, I am asking you to look at this whole situation as a human first. Not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, not as a fan of one leader or another, just as a person. With the amount of news and content, commentary, and outrage swirling around this, it's almost impossible to calmly analyze each accusation or each email one by one. Every single accusation could be its own 2020 episode. It could be its own Netflix miniseries. If we tried to go line by line, we'd be here forever. And that is not how I want to talk about this today. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to walk through a few thought exercises. We're going to do a little bit of role playing. We're going to zoom out and look at the bigger patterns and the basic intentions and try to answer a simple question in simple terms. Did a bunch of rich, powerful people do evil things or not? It's that simple. To do this, I put together 3 hypothetical situations I want you to sit with. 3 different angles that might help you see this from a slightly different perspective than whatever talking head or feed has been feeding it to you. In this episode, the evil among us is going to be hypothetically poked and prodded with what I'll call a trident of unity. 3 points of pressure to see for once if we can all agree on something as a species. Just one thing. Just this. Let's tune in. All right, so before I get into these hypotheticals, I need to make something clear. This episode is not about politics. It's not about taking sides or defending anyone. I'm asking you, as you listen, to try to hear what I'm saying from a purely human perspective. Please set aside whatever political filter you've used to seeing the world through, because the truth is we can't live as if this is a sporting event, picking our team, cheering for the logo on our jersey, and booing the other side. This is not a game. This is about humanity, about good and evil, about powerful people who may have done unbelievably terrible things. And to be transparent here, I didn't vote for any candidate in the last election. But if I'm being completely honest, if I had, I probably would have voted for Trump. I'm sorry to those that aren't happy about that. I would have, but the way that administration was sold with the talk about draining the swamp and cutting through the corruption, that idea spoke to me. I believed it for a moment, but looking back now, I would have regretted that vote immediately. Things have spiraled into something far darker and more chaotic than I ever expected. And the biggest gaslighting act I've ever seen is happening right in front of us. We're being told the pool of filth we're drowning in comes from somewhere else. When in reality, this is decades of rot bubbling up from both sides, from previous administrations, from systems that have never really changed. I say all this not to take a political stance, but to show that I am capable of admitting when I'm wrong. I believed in draining the swamp. I was wrong, because instead of draining it, we just replaced the swamp creatures with fucking sharks with laser beams on their fucking head. It's worse now than I've ever seen it ever in my lifetime. So please, hear what follows with an open heart, not as a supporter of one side or another, but as a human being. For the sake of all of us, try to step outside the noise for a moment and let's explore these hypotheticals together. Now, hypothetical number 1. So for this first hypothetical, I want you to imagine that the President of the United States was never involved in any of this. Not at all. No connection. Now, for some of you, that's going to be easy because that's probably what you think. For another group of us, it's going to be a little bit harder to kind of run this filter. But for this hypothetical, we are all going to do this. For that, we have to completely ignore that in the tens of thousands of documents that have come out of this case, his name appears an enormous amount of times. We have to pretend every one of those mentions is either a coincidence, a duplicate, or a flat-out lie. We're all setting all of that aside. We also have to ignore the photos of him and Epstein together. We have to ignore the incredibly disturbing things he's said long before he became the president of the free world. Back when he was just a wealthy real estate mogul saying boys will be boys type of things that a lot of us knew deep down were not just harmless jokes. We're ignoring that too, okay? In this hypothetical, he did not participate in any ring. He did not involve himself in a network of predators harming young girls and boys, and he absolutely did not harass, pressure, or manipulate adults into sexual situations they never would have chosen on their own. In this version of reality, he did none of those things. Zero. He's completely clean. Okay. But also, here's something we can't ignore. Jeffrey Epstein himself. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I mean, Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008 in Florida to charges related to soliciting prostitution, including involving a minor. And he served time for that. So we acknowledge that this happened. It was probably downgraded, but I don't want to assume. We're speaking to facts here. Then in 2019, he was arrested again and indicted on federal charges of sex trafficking minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. This is what we know. This is the, now it's worded in it's such a clean way, but I'm going to read it again. He was arrested again for sex trafficking minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. We know that's taking it lightly, but we all know that nothing came of this because he was found dead in a cell and never made it to trial. So even if you throw every rumor away, even if you delete every name in those files in your mind, it is safe to say that serious crimes were happening. Evil things were happening. Young people were being exploited. Vulnerable people were being used. This is not speculative. A lot of us have seen or read some of the emails, messages, and patterns that suggest coded language and deliberate hiding of behavior that, if written plainly, would be undeniable evidence. It would be clear evidence. But a lot of it's coded, somehow because things are phrased vaguely or sloppily and if you look at some of these things, it looks like they were typing in text. They're humorously terrible grammar, and it's a ton of coded language. We're told it's all just circumstantial, just interpretations, just questionable intent. Meanwhile, regular people, people like you and I, Joe Schmoes like you and me, have been convicted in court with far less. Sometimes over the way they use just a simple emoji in a text message. There's multiple cases of incidents like this happening. Joe Schmoes like you and I getting convicted with evidence just like this. But even emojis. Look, here's one that I found was called the Commonwealth versus Castano in 2017. And that's a Massachusetts court upheld a murder conviction based partly on a WhatsApp message sent by the defendant containing an emoji with X's for eyes, interpreted in context with other messages. It was convicted because of emoji with X's in his eyes. Look it up. Commonwealth versus Castano. It's like one WhatsApp message. Now, who knows? I don't know everything about that case, but in the Epstein files, there's millions of documents here, coded or not, with photos or not. It's there. Okay. So in this scenario, we are granting the president total innocence. He is not involved in any way. We clear? Okay. So here's my question. What are we going to do about everybody else? All of the other names, all the people in power, the wealthy monsters, the facilitators, the ones who paid, the ones who arranged, the ones who looked the other way. Do they not need to be held accountable? Do they get a pass because your preferred leader might be standing near them in the blast radius? If you truly believe none of these people should face consequences, I'm going to be blunt here. This podcast is not for you. Turn it off. Distance yourself from me in every way. And be honest with the people in your life that this is where you stand. Tell them that you're okay letting this go. Because there has to be accountability, in my opinion. There should be mass investigations, charges, convictions, wherever the evidence leads. I don't care how rich they are, how powerful they are, or what party they belong to. If we can actually agree on anything here, let it be this. If someone did these things, they must be held responsible. You don't even have to include our leader in that sentence. If you can't bring yourself to, fine. Leave them out of your mind if you absolutely have to, but still demand action. Demand the truth. Demand consequences for everyone who abused their powers to harm others. I honestly have a hard time believing that anyone deep down can ignore everything it took just to set up this hypothetical. But even if you do, even if you cling to the idea that your side can do no wrong, you still cannot deny that wrongdoing happened, and people still have not fully been held accountable. If you can't even agree with that much, then why? Ask yourself. Sorry. Okay. That's one hypothetical. That's one scenario. Now, on to the next scenario. This one is for the people who genuinely believe most of these victims are lying. For the people who think they're just trying to cash in and take advantage of a situation or get their 15 minutes of fame and a settlement check. This is for you. I've heard a lot of this type of feedback from people in passing or people on job sites. This is for you guys. So for this hypothetical, we all need to sit with the scale of what we're talking about here. This is not a small scandal. This is an operation that has left a massive wake of damage behind it. Law enforcement has identified more than 1,000 people as victims or potential victims connected to Epstein and the network. Boys, girls, men, women, children, over 1,000 human beings. So let's play the skeptics game here. Let's say half of them are lying. Half. That still leaves about 500 people telling the truth. 500 boys or girls, 500 men or women, 500 children and adults who are actually abused, exploited, trafficked, coerced. But you know what? Let's take it even further. Let's bend over backwards in favor of law and order for the people who love to scrape every post and every sentence on social media looking for one contradiction that can wave around as proof that the whole thing is fake. Instead of 1,000, let's use 150. Why 150? I'll tell you. So, because in 2021, the Epstein's Victims Compensation Program, ever heard of it? It's the Epstein's Victims Compensation Program. It's a private, confidential, voluntary fund set up by the executors of Epstein's estate. They paid out about $121 million to roughly 150 people who alleged sexual abuse. Okay? So 150 people received $121 million from a private, confidential, voluntary fund set up by the executors of Epstein's estate. That's why I'm using 150 people here. Okay? Independent administrators reviewed those claims and approved them, all of them. Our system, in practice, said, yes, these people were harmed enough that we're going to pay out over $100 million. So let's use that group, 150 victims. Now, Let's run the skeptic filter again. Let's say half of those people are lying. Half of the group that was already vetted and compensated. That still leaves 75 human beings, 75 young women, 75 girls, 75 boys, 75 children and adults who were sexually abused. With the release of more files and disclosures, it is safe to assume there are more people involved in this than just the two names we all know, Jeff and Ghislaine. More conspirators, more facilitators, more people who helped, paid, arranged, protected, or participated in this. Are you really okay saying, we paid $121 million to this group, case closed, let them move on? Just because you've convinced yourself that the other 75 must be lying? Remember, we started from over 1,000 possible victims, and we chopped that in half. Then we shrunk it to 150. Then we chopped that in half. We are now at the most bare minimum, stripped down, conservative estimate you can imagine, and you're still looking at dozens and dozens of people whose lives were shattered. Are you honestly comfortable with the idea that we just cut these people a check and never fully dig into who all the monsters are behind what happened to them? No further time or resources should be spent to find out exactly what kind of misconduct took place, who enabled it, who bought access, who arranged flights, who supplied locations. Do you really believe that Epstein and Ghislaine were the only conspirators? That this entire operation could exist on this scale without a network? Wake the fuck up. Like, really, wake up, bro. Like, it is insane. It is delusional. The point I'm trying to make is this. The scale is disturbingly massive. To look at that and not want to seek justice, to not want to know who else is behind these actions, is pure denial. There are mountains of documents, photos, and testimony, and more than enough evidence to know that something truly evil was happening here. Even if some people stretch the truth, even if some details are messy or inconsistent, there is still more than enough here to justify real investigations, real accountability, and real consequences. Actual justice. Not just payouts, not just hush money. Actual justice to identify and remove from power the people who indulged in this disgusting behavior. Now, on to my third and final thought experiment. And this one is especially for the doubters. I need you to really try to step in here. Step inside someone else's mind, someone else's world for a minute. For this third hypothetical, we're not going to pretend we can truly see from the victim's point of view. We can't. That's just the reality of it. What I want to do instead is paint a crystal clear picture of how the dynamics in a relationship with someone older and richer and more powerful can slowly slide into something way beyond what the victim ever thought they were signing up for. And this is hard to do, because a lot of people listening will never be put in a situation like this. And honestly, it's a blessing. But it also makes it really easy to say, well, I wouldn't have done that. Or I would have just left. Here's the thing. Visualizing the world from the perspective of a beautiful, young, attractive woman is something the average-looking middle-class guy will never, ever, ever fully experience. The world treats her completely different. The level of attention, pressure, opportunity, danger, the way men look at them, it's totally different. And if we're honest, there's a pretty good chance that a lot of average-looking middle-class men are possibly just a little jealous of that attention. They say, they see, a beautiful young woman, and they think, well, it must be nice. So to both groups, I do want to clarify, to both groups, the guys who feel that and the women who live inside that spotlight, yes, there are exceptions. I'm talking about patterns, though. Now layer money and class onto that. A beautiful young woman from a wealthy family is playing a very different game from a beautiful young woman whose parents live paycheck to paycheck. their cravings, their sense of what's possible, and their desperation are not the same. That young woman from a lower financial class has a much higher ceiling to climb, to reach what she's been told is success, like we talked about in the last episode. She will consider and accept a wider range of opportunities because from where she's standing, the ladder is a lot taller and the ground below her is a lot shakier. So now I'm talking directly to the average middle-aged or middle-class guy listening. I want you to put yourself in a situation that fits your world, and then we'll flip it, okay? So here we go. I'm talking to you. Imagine you're 16 or 17, just out of school. Your parents are pretty poor, not completely destitute, but definitely not middle class. Money is tight, and you need a job. Well, you're in luck because you land this job working for an older boss. Let's say an older woman, for this example. She's the primary authority figure you report to directly. Could just as easily be a man, by the way, but we'll stick with this. Older woman, we'll say fairly attractive. Okay, well, just to make it a little more interesting. The job is fairly easy, not too physical, but it pays really well, especially for someone your age. So you get this job, and as days and weeks go by, you start to notice things. The rich boss lady is a little flirty. She sometimes gets a little handsy, okay? She has this quirky personality, and she knows how to make you feel good about yourself, especially around payday. And again, she pays well. You could feel that there's more on the horizon. You just know it. You could feel it, like the way she looks at you. Makes you laugh. You could just feel it. Well, before you took this job, your buddy who set you up with this job, he was the one. He warned you. He gave you a little bit of warning. He said, "She's kind of weird, dude. She can get kind of handsy sometimes. The job's easy and the perks are insane." That's your buddy talking. That's your buddy. But she has a lake house, okay? Everybody hears about this lake house. She invites people out there. It's huge, beautiful, fully stocked alcohol, booze, full bar, boat, dock, whole 9 yards. Everyone says it's a blast. And you know all of this going in, and you still take the job. You let her flirt. You tolerate the handsy moments because it's money, it's status. It's better than anything else you've got on the table. Your buddies are jealous. You got this amazing job. You just buy a car. You got your first car, maybe even get your first apartment. Then guess what? Then it happens. You get the invite, bro. You get the invite to the lake house. You're pumped. You've heard about how fun it is, and when you get there, it lives up to the hype. Totally. It's gorgeous. There's a handful of other coworkers there too. Good music, tons of booze. You're drinking, you loosen up. Boss ladies gets even more handsy, maybe even a little grabby. It's just a great time. You have a blast. One for the ages, right? Well, things go fine. You get back to work. You have to go back to work eventually, and you get to the office, and there's a little bit of laughter. People telling you how you and your boss were getting a little nasty, dancing on the dock. You don't really remember that too well, but when you shrug it off, you remember. It was a little blurry, but I remember. You got home, nothing exploded. It wasn't anything bad, whatever. Work goes on. Work keeps working. It's going great. You get a raise. You get an extra raise. Sweet little bonus, too. You are winning left and right. Friends are jealous. Opportunities arising. You're making new friends. Little time passes, and guess what? You get another invite to the lake house party. This time you hesitate a little bit. Just a little bit. Something feels off. You're not sure what it is. She's your boss. It was fun. You had an awesome time. You know, you like fun. I like fun. I want to go. Yeah, let's go. So this time you go. This time the party's a little different. It's bigger, louder, more people. Some faces you recognize, some faces you don't. Bottles are flying all over the place. People are getting wasted. Some drugs in the mix. The white powder is everywhere. Things are happening. Then before you know it, I mean, some folks are getting naked. Butt naked. It's wild. It's chaotic. It's exciting. Man. Then you don't really remember too much more. You got wasted. You don't really remember anything. You black out. Middle of the night. You're not really too sure when you blacked out, but you black out. And as an alcoholic, I can tell you, it's not a fun feeling. But you wake up in a spare bedroom, fairly nice spare bedroom, you know, with a younger girl next to you. It smells a little funny. You know, it smells like, I won't say what it smells like, but it smells funny. It's one of those days you can hear the birds, but it's just like, what the fuck? And you don't remember a thing. And as a recovering alcoholic, I can tell you that feeling is so uncomfortable, and so it's fear. It's not a good feeling. But you got a splitting headache, and you get the fuck out of there as fast as you can. You don't know what happened. Then you got that time period where you don't know. You got to go back to work. You got to see these people again. You got to go back to work sometime, and you do. Well, back at work, things are mostly, I mean, they seem the same on the surface. But your boss is a little different. He's less playful, not as flirty. She's a little bit more sharp and controlling. A few days go by, and she calls you into her office. She's wearing something a little bit more revealing than usual. She closes the door. Then she asks you to do something illegal. Not like movie-level criminal or no rob a bank or murder somebody or anything, but very clearly against the law. You know, it's take this bag of cash to this address. Bring back a box and don't ask any questions. You hesitate. Your gut tightens. You say no. You tell her, I'm not comfortable with that. The energy in the room changes instantly. She walks over, shuts the door fully, turns on the TV in the office. It's a nice TV, by the way. And there on the screen, guess what? There you are. Right slap dab in the middle. You're in a room with older people you don't really recognize. You're naked. Butt naked. It's from the night you blacked out. When you don't remember much, you're at the center of some kind of orgy with men and women touching you. And you're touching them. And they're old. It kind of looks like you're having fun. Eek. Doesn't look good for you, huh? Every angle's captured. You feel your stomach drop through the floor. This is the kind of video that would ruin you if it got out. With your parents and your friends, your community, cops, whoever. She pauses the video and looks at you, and calmly explains, you've already delivered a couple of those packages, honey. And by the way, you didn't realize how serious it was, but you've already committed crimes. I know what you've done. I have this video here, and I have friends in law enforcement. Remember Sheriff Ball Breath? He comes to my parties. Suddenly, you're not an employee anymore. You're trapped. You could go to the police, sure, but all you can see in your mind is that footage playing out in some courtroom, on some news site, on your parents' TV. And she leans in and says, darling, don't be down. I'm going to pay you a lot of money to keep doing this for me. And our little secret stays between us. So you stay. You don't call the cops. You deliver the bag of cash. You bring back the box. You get a giant bonus. Go back to work like it's normal. Just like before. Lake house invites keep coming. But now people start paying you serious stacks of cash just for being there. One woman buys you a nice car. You tell yourself you'll stay in control. You won't black out. And yet almost every time it happens again, or at least gets fuzzy enough that you can't clearly say what didn't happen. But the bills are getting paid. Your family finally has breathing room. You're starting to think about starting your own family. On the outside, you look lucky. Everybody's jealous. On the inside, you are completely compromised. Now, ask yourself this. Is this really that impossible to imagine? And remember, this is you as an average-looking, broke teenage guy. Now replace you with a beautiful young woman, younger, poorer, with more people paying attention to her body than to her words. With the added guarantee that if she ever speaks up, people will simply say she wanted it. She knew what she was doing. She's just in it for the money. Most men with extreme wealth and power didn't get there by being gentle, patient, or selfless. A lot of them got there by stepping on people, learning exactly how to exploit vulnerabilities and figuring out how to push people just far enough that they break without making a scene. They're not going to regular bars to pick up chicks. Some people play video games for fun. Some people play guitar. Some ride motorcycles or drive fast cars. Some go hiking or skydiving. Maybe travel the world. Some go hunting. But the so-called elites in this world, and to be clear, I don't call them elites. They don't deserve that high-ranking title, in my opinion. They have enough money to buy any kind of fun they want. They're not hunting deer in the woods. They're paying absurd amounts of money to go kill exotic animals on private safaris. And for some of them small dick losers, even this isn't enough. The only thing that lights them up anymore is pretty little boys and girls. And the only reason you've never been put in that position is because for them, their money isn't buying you. It's buying someone younger, poorer, prettier, or more vulnerable. So when you look at these victims and say, well, they could have just left, understand this. From where they were standing, leaving often didn't look like an option at all. All right, well, that's what I got, friends. That's how I feel about it. This is big boy stuff for sure. This isn't gossip. This isn't drama. This is possibly the biggest organized crime network we've ever seen in our lifetime. I honestly can't think of another scandal or story that really compares in terms of scale, reach, and just the sheer amount of power wrapped up in it. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about all of us, about our future, our mental health, and selfishly, I'm terrified for my kids and the world they're inheriting. And you should be thinking about that too. A lot of younger couples don't even want to have children right now because the world feels so heavy and unsafe. And I get that. Has life always been hard? Of course. Every generation has had its monsters and its madness. But right now, more than ever, things feel darker, louder, more chaotic. I know I'm not the only one who feels like there's a major shift happening right now as the sun rises and falls day after day. Something is moving. Something is changing. And I actually believe underneath all the fear and noise that the shift is trying to pull us towards something better. Just like the cycles of a day. There's always a period of darkness. Night falls. Things get quiet. Things get scary. But then eventually the sun comes back up. My hope, honestly, my prayer is that we use this moment and stories like this as a catalyst to come together instead of tearing each other further apart. That we can look at something this obviously evil and say, no, this is the line. This is where we stand together. If we can do that, if we can unite as one collective, even just on this one thing, that children should not be bought, sold, or abused, that power should not mean immunity, then maybe we actually do step through this darkness into something a little brighter. The world depends on whether we can do that or not. Like, share, comment. The engagement helps. Spread the word about this one, please. Thanks for tuning in. Later.